Hello, we are doing a garden tour today. You know, I usually had not been good at doing garden tours except for once or twice during the season, but what I'm trying to do this year, I've already put up one garden tour, is show the garden all throughout the year because it changes completely. Sometimes it's barren, like the last time I showed it. Right now we're entering kind of the mid-spring time, which we've had a really warm spring here in Iowa. So I'm just gonna take you around the yard. I have no annuals or nothing planted yet in containers. I have a few things though in the garden, we can show that. But lots of perennials are up. I've already started planting some new areas. So I thought we're gonna do a tour, kind of show where we're at this point. And I'm trying to decide, usually I start on the front. So I think we should go around to the front because it kind of just makes sense because it's the best flow for the yard and do a really quick garden tour. I'd love to know what your guys' gardens are looking like, by the way, because I think it's fun to find out how every place, no matter where you live, it's gonna be different, but it's gonna be exciting, right? So we're gonna start right here where you would enter my house if you were gonna come actually on the front walkway. All this area, right now the box would have their spring flush of growth. I always call it a spring flush. And you can see it's just all this new growth is coming out. I had a reel recently where I talked about how I prune off any little bit of winter burn, but don't do a big shape or prune yet. I just do a light prune just for any type of that winter burn. But what you're also gonna notice is some beautiful hellebores are still blooming, by the way, but their new growth is up, so it's starting to cover some of the blooms. Just a couple weeks ago, these were full of only blooms, and now they're getting all of this fresh growth for the coming season. Soon, some Sun King Aurelia will pop up. That's that lime green color you're seeing back there. Lots of allium are gonna bloom soon. I just am taking apart this container because I planted what was in it, and we'll soon be putting an agave in there like I always do. But you know, this walkway, it's really been a few years now that everything's planted. The boxwood are really starting, I want them to grow into each other. I want them to start taking shape and just kind of being a big mass of green, because this is an area you come and enter their house year round, so I want green to be here year round. You're getting a little sneak peek. I have a video coming of putting a fountain together and creating it out of an old antique horse trough. I don't have it done yet, but you're getting a little sneak peek here of what's to come. We're doing this tour, by the way, in the evening, so this is when more traffic sometimes goes by, like after work and stuff. But I thought we could come out maybe to the edge, kind of the entry point of my driveway, because this is that area where I have lots of drought-tolerant perennials and lots of things that are just coming back to life. And even though right now we're at the end of April, this stuff is way ahead, but it's looking beautiful. So you can see right here's where you drive in, and look at all this growth right now. So these are bald cypress, so they don't have anything on them yet. But you can see right here, the Skyland spruce, it is putting on its candles or its eyes right here. So it's getting all this new growth all around it. I love the light green color. I think it's so pretty. The Millennium allium are really popping up. I had some daffodils. They're gonna be kind of fading away, but there's allium that are coming with the Millennium. So there's two types of allium here, and I always think that's a good, important thing to remember. There is allium that blooms in the spring, and it's a bulb, and then there's summer blooming allium, and it's a plant, a perennial. And what I love is to mix them both because you get some more interest for longer in the season. There's Russian sage that's coming back. I cut it way back. This whole area, I took my push mower and I just mow it down to the ground. And I also, with a lot of this, put the leaves and everything out into the yard and then used my big riding mower and blew it all on, chopped up. So it just kind of self-mulches. Now, all these are cat's pajamas, Nepeta, or catmint, and you can see they are just full of blooms. I put these in, this is gonna be their third year, but second full year, kind of like 2.5 years. And you can see, look how beautiful all that growth is, and these bloom all summer for me. So as we go from the entry point here, you can see we're right at the house. So this, in February actually, we were so warm, I moved this big red point maple and it's doing really well. I don't usually move anything in February. Usually I don't go outside, but this year I was able to. And then all along the front here, coming to life, are my 3 oaks too. So they're crimson oaks and they're a nice upright oak, which I really love because I have power lines. So I don't want them to get too close, but they'll eventually get nice and tall and a little bit definitely wider, probably like 12 to 18 foot wide each. And they'll have some nice fall color too with the red colors. So right now along the front, and this is usually one of my biggest questions is, what's the silvery foliage? So this is all Helen von Stein. And I really do, I love this lamb's ear because it's really about the foliage in this case. So this stockies isn't necessarily for the bloom, the Helen von Stein, also sometimes called big ears, depending where you buy it. but it's beautiful for foliage, and it has really begun, you can see all around here, to start filling in. Why I like it is it's full sun, it's drought tolerant, it actually really does not like wet feet or staying too wet, so it has been working perfectly for me. Now, all in front here are some older, what's called a winter green boxwood. They're a little bit lighter color, but they do well for me here on the south side, full sun. And they've had different sizes because some are original and some I had to add later, but slowly they're all gonna be big and they kind of vary. Behind them is all Mount Everest allium, which are gonna bloom white, and then some lilies. I put in some turtle lilies last year, and you can see they're just beginning to wanna open. So I'm really excited about these because they get really large poker-like flowers. And there is some Russian sage behind there too, that during the summer in the heat, the south exposure does really well. But what I'm really starting to love is this texture of greens I'm starting to get to play with. You know, since it's the front, it's the south side, it can be kind of harsh. All these things really end up taking care of themselves, especially from the front porch. I can sit and just enjoy the texture. Soon I will have my hanging baskets up. I will have all my tropical plants out. Right now there's a few pansies in the containers. There's going to be ferns there soon. But what we're coming into is that path area that really butts up to my backyard. And we have Kip here at my feet, so if you hear him, what are you going to be doing? Trying to bite my feet, probably. You know, I always wonder if driving by, people think I'm really bizarre talking to my phone like this, but I'm not talking to my phone. I'm talking to all of you, which I really love. So we're coming up on this new path area, which if you followed me last year, I put in this path. You can go and find the videos on this path on YouTube and on Facebook. And this was a new adventure for me. But what I want to explain is it's just the beginning, because I have a big master plan of how I want this path to eventually be able to connect and make a big area around my yard. But I'm going to do it in sections. I'm going to do it in small amounts. One, just so I don't get overwhelmed with the beds I'm planting around it. But two, it costs money too. So I like to be able to do it in sections as I can handle it. But I want to show you how it's starting to come together. So this is the entry point at the moment. Eventually I have a plan of wanting it to go all the way up to the front walkway. But what this does, it has a big shade garden, which I have a video coming talking about this area. I extended this shade garden this year in re-edge, which I'll show you. And you can see the line is now just a perfect, beautiful cut line. I eventually on this other side want to extend this bed too. And it's gonna be all it's prairie dropseed grass, it's salvia, it's penstemon, it's some baptisia. This one has a little bit more of just a full sun, drought tolerant bed. Eventually these Regal Prince oaks will get larger, obviously, and they're gonna shield me from the road somewhat, along with the Technia arborvitae. But I still want this all underplanted, and I wanna extend so I can have just that prairie dropseed grass kind of all throughout. Now on this side, obviously I have more hosta, I have hellebores because this is a shade loving garden on this side. This is honestly, and you're gonna think I'm joking, this is the one spot of shade I have in the whole yard. I don't really have a lot of shade. So this is the area I can enjoy it in. You know, growing up, we never really had a lot of shade. We had one spot pretty much in the backyard. So I'm not used to shade, but that means I really crave it. I think we always crave what we don't have. So I crave areas to be able to put shade loving plants like hosta. So I have quite a few under there. Probably more than I could, but we have to enjoy them in the ways we can. So that's the one area I can put any of the shade things. So up around this corner, if you remember, I put a big old millstone in the corner that I had found locally. I have two of these actually, so at some point I'll put another one in. But this is where then it changes slightly, but still to drought loving, drought tolerant perennials here. So what I have are a lot of calamint. I think it's the white mountain variety. I have black-eyed Susans, of course. I have a lot of baptisias in here. I have caradonna salvias. And all of these are going to be in their second year. Blue Fortune Egostaki, seriously one of my favorite plants. Not only does it have a great fragrance, it's just beautiful and it's a workhorse. You have to do nothing to it. So last year, when I put all of these things in, I watered them really probably about 2 times a week for a month. And then I went down to once a week. And then I only watered them a couple times in the fall and pretty much stopped, and everything is doing beautifully. You know, you have to establish things obviously, but this year I do not plan on watering this bed. I plan on it taking care of itself. And you know, some of you are gonna ask what these busts are. Someone mentioned that they look like tombstones. I'm not gonna say you're wrong, but I still love them. They represent the 4 seasons. So there's a spring, summer, fall, and winter, and if you look closely at them, you can kind of tell. I've got the limestone plinths off Marketplace, and I just kind of enjoy them. They, to me, represent the seasons, and my office window where I work all the time is right there, so I can sit there and view out this garden, and I really enjoy that. We're gonna cut through the yard, actually, and go straight to the house, because I'm gonna show you, so I think we all have, maybe we don't, maybe you guys all don't, but I do. I have definitely what I would call an ugly side of my house. And it was always where the air conditioner units were. It's where when I had my second floor remodeled, I had to remove some things as they were doing some pipes and different things, and it just has never looked great. So this spring, I really kind of started working with it. And I want to show you my beginning. Now, it has not been mulched yet, just remember that. There's still more to come. But I want to show you what I'm starting to do. Now, I can't cover everything completely, and I think we always need to come to terms with it is real life, and we don't have to mask everything. Air conditioner units are real. You have them. Internet cables coming into your house. It's not going to be perfect, okay? But that's okay. I'm going to show you what I'm working with to get to the point where I'm enjoying it better. I've been debating whether I want to dig my downspouts in. I've also just thought about making it nicer, kind of a nicer area. One time I saw someone edge in limestone and then have it drip off nicer. So we'll see. I don't know what I'll do for sure. I've thought about digging them in to a pot out in the yard, but for now, what I did was I put in a green mountain boxwood, which will eventually cover some of that internet cable. And then I have lots of just green velvet boxwood. Now, what I really wanted to watch in this area is it's tricky. It gets hot afternoon sun on the west. I have my furnace right here that just exhausts out here. So in the winter, anything if you would put it too close to there won't do well. So what I did was I kept that boxwood a few feet away, and I'm putting ornamental grasses in all along the back. So I just want them to get tall, kind of shield the house a little bit, but then also what's nice is over the winter they'll go dormant, and that exhaust can just go right onto them. They're hardy grasses, I'm not worried at all. I have more of the Helen von Stein here. I have just split ones I had along the front and put starts all along back here. And we do have a kitty that's gonna help us here. Another green mountain box. So this one was able to stay. I had to move it slightly, but it eventually somewhat shields that. That's the stuff you can't get rid of, but we need it, right? So I have some small grasses in front. All this is just going to see, and you can see again, more grasses here to start coming up in front of the air conditioner units. All of this is just gonna grow up and be drought tolerant. Boxwood are semi-drought tolerant when they're established. In extreme droughts, obviously that can change. And more downspouts. So, you know what? It's the ugly side of a yard, but it's kind of one that I'm slowly starting to enjoy. I think we need to embrace the reality and just enjoy it because it still is a beautiful area. I would actually love your thoughts on sides of the yard maybe that you are always working on. I just think that's how it is. We're always gonna have a certain part of our yard that we think can be improved. That's maybe one of them. So what I wanna show you right now is the perennial bed behind the shed. This is where peonies are gonna be blooming soon. But there is one thing that did already start. GM started blooming, and I want to show you. So this backside of the shed is kind of one of my favorites. In the winter, it goes fairly dormant other than the boxwood, but then it really comes to life in the spring, summer, and fall. So we have lots of millennium allium. We have lots of betony, the humalo betony. I have lots of hardy geranium all along the front, and that I have been training. You can see I've been training it. If you can kind of, let me see if I can get this shadow. That shadow line's hard to see. But all around the front, I'm training that hardy geranium because I want it to fill in almost like a ground cover. It gets big, but I think it's really kind of nice just to fill in because it's so hardy and drought tolerant. Right here, I love geum. I think it's one of my favorites. It's geum. It's such a simple, delicate flower in the spring. The mound gets bigger. It doesn't spread easily. I mean, it just gets a bigger mound, which I really like. I think this one might be tequila sunrise. It's such a simple, delicate, beautiful flower. But if we're going on down, you're gonna see there's a lot of Ito peonies, there's herbaceous peonies. Now, if you don't remember, Ito peonies are a cross between a traditional garden peony and a tree peony. So they're sturdier, stockier, and can have bigger blooms. Look, here's another. That's a peach GM, if I remember right, which has gorgeous blooms. Now, a lot down this row, you're gonna start seeing a lot of fern leaf peonies. I have quite a few of those in here, and they're all separated from pretty much plants I got from my grandma and great grandma over the years. One spot I really had a tricky issue with was, if you remember, a lot of you love these above and beyond roses. I have two, and they're both on the back side of the shed, and they're beautiful. They are loaded with blooms. They are beautiful every, early summer, late spring. Last year, kind of late summer, early fall, I was coming out and I thought, man, they look a little weird. I went up to them and they were just loaded with scale. And if you know scale, if you've had it on an outdoor plant, it is not fun. And it almost killed them, but you can see I was able to salvage it. So what I did was cut off a lot of the dead. I did lots of dormant oil early spring to hopefully suffocate that scale. which is a nice natural way to take care of it. What I'm going to do is a regimen of neem oil on it now during the year here, just to ward off that happening again. So that was kind of a bummer when I found it, because these usually are so easy and do so well, but I know there's so much new growth on it that they're gonna bounce back. Going on down, there's the tree peonies. This is a yellow one. It got knocked back a little bit this winter, but it has lots of great new growth kind of fleshing out now. Tree peonies, they don't die back to the ground every year. They have a nice kind of sturdy trunk-like stem, and that's their main central leader usually, and they grow off of that. Otherwise, everything has been filling in so nicely here. Last year I really worked a lot of it. I separated a lot of the Millennium Allium, and I made lots of new plants, and I feel like this year it's all kind of coming into its own, which I love. Another Ito peony right there. I think that's a yellow one too. You can see I'm trying new peony rings this year. I know my shadow's gonna be in the way, but if you look, they're really sturdy and stocky, kind of like a nice iron work. I found them on Etsy and I really like them. So what we have going on around here is then, I'm gonna show you one of the tree peonies, lots of Morgium. It's just about to bloom, lots of allium, but this beautiful cut leaf peony. It's one of my favorites. I got this from great grandma, and it does so well, and they're an early bloomer. So any of the fern leaf, the cut leaf, they bloom really early for me, which is kind of really nice. So we're gonna work our way back slightly, and I'm gonna talk about the path extension I'm doing this year. So this year I'm undertaking having that path that I showed you extended and added to kind of just continue that vision I have, and it will take a little bit of time. But I think it will really work well. So I'll try to explain it on here, and then I'm gonna do videos of when it's happening and then the plantings I'm doing around it, because this is all about making it, even though it looks like more work, it's to make, for me, easy work. You know, these beds, all I do to take care of them around that pathway is I mow them with a push mower and self-mulch everything, just chop it and drop it back on the plant so it self-composts over time. So where that path ends, it's now just going to keep extending, and it's gonna follow the same line. It's gonna be completely straight, and it's gonna come all the way down and go to that opening right down there to my vegetable garden. And then everything behind it up to these woodward arborvitae is gonna be a large bed that I'm gonna plant with some of the same perennials, but they're gonna be ones that naturalize and intermix, but also ones that can just be all chopped and dropped with that same composting method with my push mower every spring. So to me, it's really simple. They're drought tolerant. They're going to be easy. I'll show you the mix of plants as we get close, but it's going to be a beautiful path. And I'm going to have a little bit of an area where I can put a table too, because this view on a good day is actually just, it's kind of divine. You can just sit here and look at the expanse. So the path is also going to turn and go right up to what I call my formal area. And this area is going to be redone. So the path is going to extend with those limestone edging and just pea gravel in the middle. And you can see this pea gravel, it's about 12 years old. I've lived here 14 years and I put this in about 2 years after. I never did this one correctly. I didn't put the correct underlayment. I didn't do it deep enough. I didn't level it correctly. And it's now coming to show its signs that it wasn't done. I have henbit wanting to grow in it. I have lots of other weeds. So I'm gonna scrape out all this gravel before they come. And then they're going to edge around each of my 4 quadrant beds. And they're going to relay this to be correct and at the same grade as the path. So you can take that path and come all the way up into here. Now, obviously someday I hope to keep going in other directions, but I think for this year, it's gonna be a really beautiful finish. And I'm really excited to see how this comes together. So this is the area that's gonna be rehabbed, obviously, but it's also the area where I put all my fig trees, my citrus trees, my 2 pots of mint are here. So if you want mint, don't put it in the ground because it will just take over. Put it in containers. You know my trick. I turned these over last fall. This spring, I just turned them upright and look, all that mint is coming back. It's really nice. So let's just head over to the vegetable garden. My vegetable garden season can start different every year. I'm sure yours can too. It just depends on the season you're having. So this year we had a really warm February. I mean, too warm. And March was really no different. So what that means is everything warmed up quicker. Now I've raised beds, which warm up even quicker than in-ground beds. But I was able to put things out here, I think it was around March 18 to March 20, which I have done it that early before, but that's rather early. But what I wanna show you is what I have going. I'm gonna remind you, I do not have peppers or tomatoes in. Those always wait until the last frost date, the fear of frost is over, which is usually around Mother's Day for me in Southeast Iowa. Now you can sometimes put it in early, but I would never say you should do that because I have done it, and I have had all my tomatoes and most of my peppers killed once or 2 times since living here because I thought we were not gonna have frost. It's always just best to be patient. Honestly, those are summer-loving vegetables. Waiting and putting them in is not gonna actually make them go any slower. I know we think putting them in early is gonna make them be so much bigger. It really doesn't. They catch up with the heat later anyway. So in this bed, you're gonna notice I have a row cover over it without hoops at the moment. The reason is for the first time that I can remember, had a rabbit that actually wanted to eat on my lettuce, but I caught it in time where it really only ate around the edges and it left the center. So they're all starting to come back out really beautifully. Since I had rabbits, I decided I'm gonna come out and cover it up with just it's just the same cloth I put on for a row cover for bugs later on my cole crops. This stops the bunnies from eating the lettuce. I will probably hoop it here later anyway, more just so grass clippings or anything don't get in there. But you can see everything's growing beautifully under it. So anytime you use a row cover, what's great about them is not only does it keep insects out, rabbits maybe at bay, it also helps kind of filter the sun, but still let all the rain through, which is wonderful. So it still gets the light it needs, the rain gets through. And now my spinach is actually looking really good this year, I'm all at once noticing. What I like about it is too, if you're just planting seeds, some burlap or a row cover can actually help those seeds germinate easier because they don't dry off as quick. It shades them just enough, especially burlap. Like with carrot seeds, always put some burlap down until they germinate because they'll dry off way too quickly otherwise. So I have 2 beds that are empty, obviously for peppers, for tomatoes later on. At the end of this bed, I'll put a lot of my carrots, I'll put maybe some beets, Swiss chard, kale, all those things will go in here, some more greens just to kind of eat throughout the summer. Up here are all my cole crops, so my broccoli, my cabbage, my cauliflower, and I like to put them out. You can kind of see it, you can kind of, right up, you can see them, it's kind of hard with the light, it's kind of coming through there a little too much. But all of them are just right down, and they're doing beautifully. So this is why I cover them, because sometimes it gets cold, and actually the other night it got cold enough that I did come out and put blankets over these too. But this acts as a mini greenhouse, so this just keeps them protected. Here soon I will be removing all of these, and they will just obviously start to grow. When I remove them, I have 1 hoop set up, and I'll put more on here. I will be putting row cover on, and that's what will keep any of the worms off of them, anything from laying eggs on them, because that's really what comes down to be the biggest issue for me with any cole crop, is you don't want to have the insects eating on it, and really broccoli can become loaded with worms. This is the way to keep it out, just to make sure you have a row cover, no sprays, no chemicals. It's beautiful. Over the years, obviously, I have done many different types of gardening. Growing up, organic wasn't even really a word you used, but I've learned over the years that organic is not hard to do. It just takes a little bit of time, but honestly in the end, I would say some parts of it are easier. Putting a row cover on, so much easier than any other type of regimen. And really, it protects them the best it can. Now, this is the perfect time to use rhubarb. You can see I have tons of rhubarb right here. I've been making crisp multiple times. I love making rhubarb crisp. Also, rhubarb sauce, just a quick rhubarb. I actually do it in the oven where I roast a little bit of rhubarb with some sweetener of choice, sometimes just honey and some vanilla beans, and then let it just thicken slightly. Use it then on ice cream or anything. It's so good. Rhubarb, to me, there's nothing more nostalgic. We had it all the time growing up. My asparagus is doing beautiful. I actually need to get in asparagus right now, you can see. The important thing always remember with asparagus, if it's smaller than the size of a pencil, like if it's a newer plant that you planted, don't pick it. If it gets larger, you can pick it, but if it's too small, you're gonna tax the roots too much. My garlic is doing beautiful. We planted it last fall, same with the shallots over here. And I will probably get scapes, usually in May, or early June. And then at the end of June and July, I will be harvesting this when it's about dried on 1/3 of the plant, letting it cure for 2 weeks, cutting it off, then storing it. My garlic has been doing so beautiful, and it's been such a wonderful source for me because I just finished using garlic from last year about a month ago, and then it really starts drying out. That's the one thing with hardneck garlic. It can dry out if you store it too long, but I've been having really good luck. So if I can keep it up to March of the following year, I'm happy. We're actually gonna finish up an area I never show, not because it's ugly, just because it's an area I don't, but a lot of you didn't realize, this Tina crab apple is doing so nice. It's a Sergeant Tina. But I have lots of bearded iris, and a lot of you didn't know that when I was mentioning them on stories. And I guess I'll try to show them this year. So all of these are from my great-grandma's farm. There's about 10 or 12 different varieties here. And every so often, obviously, iris, the big thing is if they start heaving up too much, you have to reset them so they bloom better. But otherwise, this area is going to be full of iris blooms, and I just come out and pick them and enjoy them in the house. And they remind me of my grandma, my great-grandma. My mom always had iris, but I also want to show you down here. This is kind of my holding area. This is by my garden shed. I just began to get out all of my agave. Now, I have not gotten them all out, but this is how I transition them outside. They get some sun, some shade, but you can see slowly, surely, I'm getting them out, and what they're gonna do is acclimate, and eventually I can then put them out in full sun. I start watering them, I kind of wake them back up, and this is my holding area until they get planted. Now, if I need to, I'll put them back in the shed or in a garage if it gets too cold. That's the tour. You know, I always hope I can show, I should go do a tour at Mom's too, because you know I'm always in that yard too. Mom lives literally, it's like I call it across the road, but I'm here. Mom is right there where that Crimson King maple is. I'm always out in the yard. If it's nice out, if it's a day where there's sun, or not even sun, if it's not raining, I'm outside in the yard. And yes, right now I do all this myself. It's a lot of work, but it's a labor of love. And it's one of those things where we sometimes just have, I think, passions for wanting to see something different, and that's what my yard is. I always feel I can continually improve it, I can work at it, and it's therapy for me. And I think that's the fun about sharing it here with you, is that I think we all derive different things from our yards, and we can all learn something from each other. Just like I learn things from you when you message me or leave comments. You know, we all are learning all the time, and that's what gardening is. It's adapting to a changing environment to know how we can better garden and how we can enjoy it. That's why over the years, drought-tolerant perennials have become much more of a forethought for me than they were before. And all these things just feed into the beauty that we can surround ourselves with. So I hope you can see that. I hope you can see that it's not always perfect. I show you the imperfect too. And that's kind of the point, that we can see the real life too. So hope you enjoy it. Let me know what you think. Leave comments, share it around so other people can see this too, because you know there's gonna be more coming, and soon enough, you're gonna see the path video and the fountain video.